Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attendance here. We'd like to now give an update on the 360 unemployment cash assistance program that we've been providing so far. And essentially it has now come to an end, except for a few dozen that are currently being finalized as we speak. To date, we have paid around $104.2 million to 289,489 Fijians, accounting for around 84% of the total applications received, which is 345,289. Since our last update on Thursday, we have paid an additional $3.4 million to 9,794 individuals. This includes payments to 7,938 individuals who had provided incorrect TINs, or tax identification numbers. The Ministry of Economy is able to obtain the correct TINs for these individuals from FRCS and using their BRN, and went ahead to assist them. For those that claimed using more than one SIM in the previous rounds, funds have been recovered from them, hence they have received a payment of less than $360. This includes 2,412 individuals who double-dipped in the previous round. So if you have received funds which are less than 360, it's because you got yourselves overpaid in the previous round of $90 or $50, and that's the reason why. We've had a couple of people sending in text messages saying, why have I not got 360? The reason why you have not got 360 is because the last time you helped yourself to funds that you weren't entitled to. If you have applied and have not received payment by now, it essentially means that you are either employed, either full-time or part-time, you're a civil servant, or you're receiving social welfare or FNPF pension, or receiving TELS and toppers living allowance. Another reason that you may not have been receiving or have not received funds is that because you have not provided your TIN, or both your TIN and BRN, and therefore there has been no verification possibility of that. Or maybe you never sent us your application. There are some people who are simply assuming that just because they've got a dose or 2 doses of the vaccine, therefore they would automatically get these monies paid to them. I just wanted to clarify a few things because there's been a few questions around some of these matters. Just further clarification. There are some people who are claiming that their workmates or the people who they work with have received the 360. And therefore they should get the 362 even though they are working. We have found that there are some people who are working but have used their phone numbers to apply on behalf of other people in the family. And that's why their workmates must be saying, oh, he's got 360 or she's got 360. That's the reason why some of them have actually received it. Now, some people have also said to us, but we all work together and they've applied for themselves. We found that in some instances, some of the employers have not been in fact deducting FNPF payments for them. So we cannot know that they're actually full-time employed. Because the way that we verify whether somebody is working full-time or not is when you send in your application, we actually send it off to FNPF, who then tells us whether this person's FNPF contributions have been made or not by the employer. So there are some employers who have now employed people and sort of paying them money on the side. And in fact, some of them may not be actually paying their tax, or most of them are not eligible to pay tax, but not paying the FNPF. So they may have therefore received the 360. Or some employers have been late in not submitting their FNPF returns. There have been some people who've argued and said, well, just because that person has got it, and even though I'm working, I should get it also. Well, no, just because somebody has illegally obtained a particular assistance, it does not mean that we continue with the illegality or have obtained it fraudulently, and therefore the others should also get it. So please understand that. The other issue, of course, is that some have not provided the TIN at all. And if you have not provided the TIN at all, you won't be paid. Because it's critically important that we get the correct TIN and BRN, as I've said, that we've gone out of our way to assist those people who have provided TINs or BRNs and they have made a mistake in it. We've gone ahead and helped them. we have found that there are some people who gave the correct TIN in one mobile, but used another mobile and gave a wrong TIN number in the hope that they would get across the line in that mobile phone too. So that has also been picked up. Please ensure, and this is a message to everybody that's received the T360, if by the time the next round of application comes, which is for the months of November, December, and January of next year, November, December of this year, you must have your TIN submitted. You must have your BRN submitted correctly. We've been through this exercise. We've helped literally tens of thousands of people get across the line, help them to get their correct TINs, help them to get their correct BRNs. So you have to ensure that if you don't have it, if you intend to apply the next time, and assuming that you are not employed by the time this coming October comes, and you are going to apply and you'll be eligible, you must have your proper TIN, correct TIN, and your correct BRN. We won't be making any exceptions for the next round. Please understand that. We have also just wanted to say that those people who still may have queries, we've set up a toll-free line to provide clarifications. The number is 158. You also have a mobile number, and I'll read that out now. It's 249999. Very easy to remember. 249999, which is a mobile number on which you can make phone calls. And more importantly, a lot of people like to Viber or WhatsApp or text the details. A lot of people we find actually sending in the photos of their vaccine cards through Viber or WhatsApp. So please, you can use that. The number is 249999. There's no point calling the Honorable Prime Minister or calling other ministers because they don't actually process it. There's a criteria. You are assessed against the criteria. No intervention by anybody will actually help you get across the line because it's in public interest to ensure that the rule applies equally to everybody. As I said, you can call 158, you can dial 249999 from 9 a.m. tomorrow if you have any further clarification. The verification process, just to explain to you again, as we mentioned for the past 3 times, that when somebody has made an application or if you have a pending application, it goes through a proper verification process. The Ministry of Economy receives it, they verify it with FRCS, they verify it with FNPF, they verify it with the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, they verify it against Ministry of Health, they verify it against Ministry of Communications, which has the digital records, and of course they verify it against TSLB to see if you're a student that's been receiving allowance, etc. So students, as we mentioned also, who are on TELS but don't receive a living allowance, they're eligible for the 360. But if you're a student and you're receiving a living allowance through TSLB, then you are not eligible for the 360. We have some interesting statistics that I'd like to share with you also, just to show you the spread of where the people actually who got the assistance, which areas they came from. Nasinu, 16.8% of the people who received of these 360 came from Nasinu, which is about 48,688 people. Nandi, 15.7, which was about 45,506. Lotoka was 14.5%, about 42,000 people. Suva, 11.3%, which is about 32,830 people. Nosori, 11.3%, 32,805. Ba, 8.4%, which is 24,444. Singatoka, 5.8%, 16,749 people. Rakiraki, 4.1%, 11,743 people. Navua, 3.1%, 8,985 people. Tavua, equally 3.1%, 8,958 people. And others from all other parts of Viti Levu were about 16,749 people, which constitute about 5.8%. Interestingly enough, we also have some age breakdowns. It's interesting to see that a lot of people over the age of 51, in fact, have been using the USSD platform. So it gets rid of that, that notion that a lot of people have misconceived notion that people who are, or I should put it the other way, that only young people know how to use mobile phones, only young people know how to, input information to the USSD platform. It is great to see a lot more people have an uptake of the digital platform, and so obviously we'll continue with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the update. As we said, we'd like to thank everybody that's participated in it. We'd like to thank all those who were patient and waited for the 360. Some had to go through a further verification process, whether it was the BRN, whether it was TIN, or indeed whether it was the vaccination digital data records that needed to be verified, and some of them, of course, fell in through the cracks, and which have now rectified those problems. So we'd like to thank everybody for the patience. We'd like to thank the team at the Ministry of Economy and everybody else from all the different agencies and ministries that have been involved in this particular exercise. Thank you very much. And also, we'd like to stress again, please, if you are applying in the next round, if you will be eligible to apply in the next round, you have to give the correct information. Otherwise, you won't actually be entertained in respect of having your application processed. So we have now, from now till around about the middle of October, to get all your information, to get all your data. And please remember also, to be eligible for the next round of 360, you have to have the 2 doses. In other words, you have to be fully vaccinated to be able to receive the next round of 360. In fact, it was interesting, quite a number of people who actually applied this round were already fully vaccinated. In other words, they had 2 doses. So those who weren't, we urge you to please go and get your second dose. And also, as you know, the Honorable Prime Minister has yesterday announced the sweepstakes as far as the lottery is concerned, sweepstakes that's concerned. Please put in your application. The information is available on our web page, on the government Facebook page. You have time till 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning, and then there'll be, of course, a verification process, and the winner, there'll be one winner for the $8,000 will be announced on Constitution Day itself, which is the 7th of September, celebrating 8 years of the implementation of our Constitution. So that's the information we have for you. We'd like to open up for any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir. Rashika from Fiji Village. What action, if any, would be taken against those who are employed but still receive the 360?
Well, like I said, it's not as simple. There are some people, if you mean in the private sector, do you mean the private sector? Or in the private sector, of course, we don't think there are that many people who actually have received the 360 and are actually employed. There are some people, like I said, who may have applied and got through the cracks because of the fact that they FNPF wasn't contributed, and in that way they would be shown as unemployed. But we found a lot of people who have applied for others, like members of the family, like perhaps the grandmother, using a mobile phone. But it was only for the grandmother, so the details actually will show you that the vaccine cards, the vaccine dates and the numbers that they've shown is actually for the grandmother. So they're not being penalized, but they've used their phone. So it's not that simple. But in respect of those who have been overpaid, obviously we will ensure that they don't get paid the next time. Thanks. And as far as the civil servants are concerned, as I've said, that we've already sent the information, or will be sending the information to the respective permanent secretaries. The permanent secretaries under the Constitution are, so of course, the ones who sign the contracts with the civil servants, and they are the ones who can institute any disciplinary proceedings where appropriate. Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir. Corey from FBC. I just want to ask, with the first round coming to an end today, for those who were vaccinated and applied, this is specifically for those in the Western Division, some people in the Western Division who were vaccinated but their status wasn't really updated on time into the online system. Are they also receiving the assistance, or what will happen to them if their status has still not been updated yet?
No, like I mentioned in the last briefing, there have been. I mean, people who have been vaccinated, and if the records weren't digitally uploaded into the system, Then they've sent their cards, and that's how I've been able to verify it. That's why I said those people have been paid. In fact, over 48,000 people have already been paid, even though the records are not digitally uploaded. I mentioned this in the last media conference. You can get the statistics from that particular release or that conference that we had. So we paid that because we know that they are, legitimate claims, legitimate people with legitimate vaccination records. Simply had not been put up digitally, so they're going through the process. We have currently over 200 civil servants. A lot of them are teachers who are actually going back to the consent forms, who are going back to the log books of the nurses who did not upload it digitally, and verifying that and then uploading it onto the system. So from that perspective, it has actually been very good for us because it's helped us to hone into the specific locations where vaccination took place, and perhaps there was laxity on the part of those people who were supposed to upload, but they didn't do it. So now we've had an expedited program in respect of getting it uploaded. So they have also received, yes. No other questions? Great, thank you. Sorry, you had one?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
There's a statement by National Federation Party leader Mr. Biman Prasad. He has said that you should be putting aside your ego for your ministerial jobs.
Sir, I don't understand.
Sorry, sir. There's a statement by the National Federation Party. They are saying that you should be putting aside your ego for your ministerial jobs. They have said that in terms of USP, when the decision didn't go with what the government wanted, the money that was supposed to be paid was stopped, and so that has been done. And also in the case of MP Indiko Noai Kula, he has, you have lashed out at the lawyers in his own department and are blaming them, and you have also said that you will change the law to suit the case. What's your comment on that, on what they have said?
Well, my first comment is that Fiji Village obviously is now well known to give NFP space for anything that they say. Tomorrow, Biman Prasad, Honorable Prasad says that cow jumped over the moon, you'll make it a news item. The reality of the matter is that they're very superfluous comments. It's not even worth commenting on. You see, the problem is that when you find people who start off a news release by attacking somebody personally, you know there's not much merit in it. That's one thing you have to understand as a good journalist. And it also goes to show that there is not much merit in what they're going to say. So in respect of the Honorable Nawai Kula issue, if anybody again reads the Constitution, as I highlighted the other day, I talked about the implications of allowing aliases to be registered in the voter list, in the voter registration. The voter registration leads to the voter list. What that means is that the voter list is the record to show how many voters they are registered, against whom the ballot papers are then printed, and people go and vote. What we are saying is that by allowing aliases to be on the voter list, you give the opportunity for individuals to, in fact, register one individual to perhaps register themselves 2 or 3 times. You may be known by 2 or 3 different names, and you could register yourself under those names. What it fundamentally does is that fundamentally undermines the integrity of the voter list. That's what it does. Because you have an inflated voter list. Now, let me tell you what some people have done in other countries. When they have aliases, what they'll do is they can apply, you can apply, for example, if you have 3 different names. Honorable Nawai Kula had 3 names that he is known by, as was discussed in the court. If you had the 3 names registered in the voter list, I could go and apply for ballot vote. You know, postal ballot, I should say, postal ballot. I can apply for that, saying, look, I'll be busy on that day, and I'll apply for postal ballot. When you apply for postal ballot and you get your ballot through the mail, they don't come and ink you, they send it to you. So you can vote through the postal ballot. then on the day of the elections itself, you can turn up personally under your, perhaps your BRN name, and go and vote, and they'll put the ink. But you've already voted twice. We know in the past, in Fiji, seats have been lost because of 5 or 6 votes. Seats have been lost because of a few dozen votes. The opposition keeps on harping in Parliament that, oh, Fiji First is only won by 1,000 votes. What if there's 1,000 aliases there? It can change the entire system. It can change the entire outcome of elections. That is why it is critically important to ensure that your voter list is of most highest level of credibility and integrity. That's one of the most common issues that observer groups have made regarding elections in many countries, that the integrity of the voter list was not there. In 2006, the EU observer group made a similar observation. In that voter list, there were dead people on the list. You had voter turnout of over 100% in the constituency of Dakandrove. This is all public available information. You should read it. Please do your research. The politicians aren't telling you this. It's got nothing to do with anybody's personality. The reality of the matter is even the court, if you read the judgment, has made an observation. Laws can be made. Laws can be amended to ensure we maintain the integrity of the voter list. Now, getting back to criticizing my own department, it's not. The Solicitor General's office, if you read the Constitution, is an independent office. This is what we've been saying since the past 8-9 years. The opposition themselves have been accusing the Solicitor General himself and his office of being not independent. All of them. They don't want his office to go and do the drafting of the laws. They said, we want somebody independent. And now when it suits them, it is independent. It is not my department. Yes, they provide advice, they defend the government. And again, I've heard some politicians say, who want to come from obscurity into limelight, that, oh, why did the Solicitor General, represent the supervisor of elections? Look at previous governments. The Solicitor General has represented the supervisor of elections previously. My observation was that the court, unfortunately, because of the representations made by the council, was not seized of these matters. Graham Leong was the chair of the Electoral Commission in 2006 when the EU made those observations. John Apted is a former supervisor of elections. So what I was saying, that I believe, in my humble opinion, it was the responsibility of counsel from both sides to be able to represent and argue the constitutional provisions. The Constitution says that every person's vote is of the same value. It's critically important. All of you here, your votes must be no more higher or less than anybody else, any other Fijian voter. But if you have the ability to vote 3 times, or even twice, suddenly everybody's vote becomes of a lower value. Isn't that a breach of the Constitution? So that was my comment, that both the councils did not argue, did not represent those constitutional provisions to the court. And the court is a court of disputed returns. And I take my hat off to the court. They basically came up with a ruling and a judgment which we all respect, and that were based on what was represented to the court. And so my comments were based on that. Now, moving on to the next issue. What about USP? We have made our position known for the past 2 years regarding the governance issues at USP. It's not a question of getting your own way. Yes, our way was, we must have good governance. There must be proper accountability. We must have people appointed based on due process. Honorable Prasad went on about personalizing matters the other day in Parliament. It is not about personalities, it is about process. If people are appointed following the process, nobody will question their appointment. Very simple. And you see, the problem, unfortunately, for Honorable Prasad is, that day we didn't mention any names, but he started yelling and screaming. Did not have the decency to even, declare his own interest. So, you see, again, responsible media organizations would simply not report what somebody utters, even though it's nonsensical, and try and get a response from it. You have to yourself look at what the facts are. And that's the position. I mean, today I heard him say that somebody sent me, I think there was an article in today's Fiji Times, I think, him saying that, oh, this is the first time we've been told that, COVID-19 is here to stay, it's an endemic, etc. The Honorable Prime Minister said that. The Minister for Health has said that. It's already been mentioned in Parliament. We've all said that we have to learn to live with this particular pandemic now, which will obviously be downgraded to be an endemic. In other words, you'll be around. You have to learn to live with it. But how you learn to live with it and how you prepare yourself to learn to live with it is two different things. So that's my response to that. Anyone?
Yes, just one final question, sir.
Sure.
The Fiji Law Society have said that they're raising concerns over arrest and transfer of Dr. Johnny Hawe, and they've said that spreading misinformation is not a crime. So what would you like to say to that, sir?
You see, again, you are just simply asking me to comment on some abstract comment made by the Fiji Law Society. I'm not here to give them legal advice. The arrest and detention of people, the charging of people is made independently by the police, Fiji Police Force. The charges are obviously reviewed by the DPP. And then it's an independent office. We've seen at times that people have been charged, the DPP have prosecuted. We've seen at times when people have been charged, the charges have been withdrawn. It needs to go through a due process. The Law Society itself should know. If there is a process, you don't try and bypass the process. You don't try and interfere with the process. Why is it that in some instances it's okay to bypass the process, in other instances it's not? Why is it okay to follow the process for some people but not to follow for other people? That's the question you should be asking. Okay? Thank you. Naka.